Today's date's Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. Today's invocation will be given by Reverend Tori Doucette, New Birth Baptist Church. If everyone would please silence your cell phones, and if you so choose, please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Eternal God, our Father, Lord, we come saying thank you, Lord, for this beautiful day, a day we never seen before and a day we shall never see again. Lord, we pray that you will continue to bless this city, bless this county, bless this council today, oh God, and everyone that holds office here in this beautiful city that we call Beaumont. Lord, we come not only to pray for this council meeting, but Lord, we come to pray for this city. We pray, Lord, because your sovereign will, you have taken a lily out of this city, this county. We pray for the Getz family today. We pray that you will cover them in your blood. Help them as they go through this trying time. Bless Mike Getz even now, Lord. And Lord, we thank you for this mayor that you have allowed to work this city for us. And we pray that you will continue to bless this council. Lord, after it's all said and done, we're going to give you the praise. We're going to give you the honor. It is in your name we pray, Jesus' name. Amen. The republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Doucette. And as many of you may not be aware of, Councilman Mike Getz, his wife, Alice and Nathan Getz, passed away this morning, and she'd been ill for some time, and our prayers are with Mike and his family, as well as Jerry and Iris Nathan and her children. So we will be with them today. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor West.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Turner.
Present.
Councilmember Durio.
Present.
Councilmember Getz absent. Councilmember Felshaw.
Present.
Councilmember Samuel. Present. And Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Thank you.
So today we have two proclamations and one presentation. Tina Broussard, City Clerk, will read the first proclamation. After it's read, we will announce the name so that you can come forward, and any members of your group come to the podium and certainly shake hands with the council if you so choose, and take pictures with us as well. First proclamation recognizing the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Whereas the City of Beaumont, Texas, in recognition of the important work done by survivors, domestic violence programs, and victim services providers, hereby urges all citizens to actively participate in the activities and programs sponsored by Family Services of Southeast Texas, Inc., and other community organizations to work toward the elimination of intimate partner violence. More than 10 million women and men are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States each year. Domestic violence encompasses a pattern of behaviors used to gain or maintain power and control over a victim. And in many cases, physical violence reinforces other forms of psychological and emotional abuse, such as threats, intimidation, and isolation. Severe intimate partner violence can include instances of physical assault, rape, and stalking that leaves victims with injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other lasting impacts. The impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting individuals and society as a whole, here in this community, throughout the United States and the world. The need for safe house continues to be rated as survivors' most urgent need. The City of Beaumont joins with others across the city, the state of Texas, and the nation in supporting victims of domestic violence, as well as local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide who are committed to increasing public awareness of domestic violence and sending a clear message to the abusers that domestic violence is not tolerated in the City of Beaumont, Texas. Whereas domestic violence impacts millions of people each year, but it can be prevented. Preventing domestic violence requires the collective voice and power of individuals, families, institutions, and systems, each of whose service adds a valuable and powerful component of transforming our communities. The color purple is the color nationally recognized to represent the fight against domestic violence, and the City of Beaumont recognizes the showing of purple ribbons at homes, schools, businesses, and public facilities as the sign of solidarity against domestic violence. Now, therefore, Roy West, Mayor of the City of Beaumont, Texas, does hereby declare October 2023 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Let us stand in solidarity with domestic violence survivors and thank the countless law enforcement officers, advocates, medical professionals, and caregivers who dedicate their lives to fighting for a world without family or intimate partner violence. And together, let us all carry out the mission of creating a community that is safe for all. Accordingly, the mayor has hereunto set his hand and caused a seal of the City of Beaumont to be affixed, signed Roy West, on this day, October 10th, 2023.
And do we have a representative, Deborah Tomov? Is she Executive Director of Family Services?
She's not here.
All right. And the next is a proclamation recognizing Tuesday, October 10th as World Mental Health Day. And the proclamation was read at Lamar University today at noon. So next we have a presentation from Miles Haynes with a report on recent years of grant applications and direction of the grant application process moving forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be doing a presentation on grant management. You can go to the next slide. Throughout this presentation, I'll do an introduction, kind of elaborate on what's the goal, what is the data, what type of grants are out there, and what type of grantors, and then more so of our process, how we move forward. So, next slide. All right, today's purpose is to provide a snapshot of what we've done in the past, but also communicate the method in which we want to move forward. We also want to include in this presentation some of our success indicators and how we want to represent this information back to you guys in the future and how we're going to categorize success when it comes to grants. So in my hand here, I have 3 different documents that are going to be the guide for this particular presentation. But I do want to start by saying thanks to Todd and his team, Ms. Cheryl and Ms. Bailey. They've worked really hard to help gather this information to help us move forward on the grants process. This is a collective effort, and so I am presenting most of the findings and the general direction moving forward. So in my hand right here is the legislative agenda, which you guys are familiar with. You took this to Austin and passed this out to legislators. Also, you guys voted on a strategic plan. You guys have a copy of that as well. And I also have the community investment plan. And so these are the 3 documents that will help guide on how we will apply for grants. Essentially, every grant that we'll begin to apply for should be based out of these 3 documents. More so the strategic plan and the community investment plan. And so that would help us give a good direction, and it would help us measure it at the year end when we begin to come back to you guys and talk more about what we've done throughout the year. Like I just said, these will be the guiding documents, and also in combination with this, I know it's been discussed where we're going to hire a grant writer. We've discussed that working with consultants on a case-by-case basis is the best approach, being that they're more exposed to the different type of grants, the organizations, the patterns, and the language that's included in the grants. And like I said, that would be a case-by-case basis. We have previously worked with some grant consultants for grants in the past, but that's going to help us maximize our efforts. So, next slide. The overall goals here listed is to increase the application of grants by 15%. And I'll show you in a couple slides on what that will look like and why why I throw out a rough number of 15%. But that's just the application of the grants. We want to increase the award amount by 5%. Generally, the more you apply for, the more you are able to receive. Grants is a little tricky. It's not apply to receive. Sometimes it takes a little while. Another goal is to be prepared for the grants by working with the consultant. We don't just want to be applying just because we got an email. We want to be a little bit more strategic. We want to align with our strategic goals and accomplish those things. We want to also avoid applying when we receive a NOFA. It's a notice of funding availability. So typically, if you receive a notice of funding availability, for the most part, well, let's say for the most part, sometimes that can be a little too late, because you have so many other communities, organizations with assets, and they have plans in place, and they've been doing this work for years. And so when they receive these NOFAs, they're prepared to apply immediately because they already have things in place. We have just implemented a strategic plan, which is very key. And this legislative agenda is very key. These are guiding documents that help make us have a stronger case when we go to apply for this funding. So we want to get ahead of the curve of the NOFAs. And the way you can do that is two ways. You traditionally go through the organizations that some staff and some of you guys are part of, example like National League of City, Texas Municipal League, ICMA. Those organizations are plugged into different funding opportunities, and they most of the time are aware of them before they become a NOFA. And so by working through these organizations, sometimes we can kind of set things in place before it is time to apply. So when we receive a NOFA, we're a little bit more prepared. It's not to say that if we do receive a notice of funding opportunity or availability that we won't apply, but the goal is to get ahead of that process. Also, we want to use the strategic plan of the CIP. These are going to be how we judge success when it comes to grants. You guys went through this rigorously. Department heads went through this document, and it's just the executive summary I have in my hand. It's obviously a bigger document similar to the CIP. And so once we accomplish things out of the strategic plan and the CIP, that equals success to us, because these are things that you guys have voted on. These are things that staff has already talked about and included in this particular document. Next slide. This is a general overview of what we have done in years past. The grant numbers is a little bit different. What you're looking at is the revenue from the grants that we used in that particular fiscal year. And grants traditionally can start from a 3-5 year and can span a little bit longer. So it's not to say this is all the numbers, but this is just the revenue captured through the general audit that's done. And so I just took that audit document, broke it down, and that's what you see in front of us as far as the revenue from those grants. And obviously, revenue from grants have to be used specifically for whatever we apply for regarding those grants. I will say that in looking at our grants, most of it was centered around FEMA and some of our disaster relief type funds and things like that. Health department had reoccurring grants. Police department have a reoccurring grant. Public Works had a lot of grants in the work that comes online in the fiscal 23 year. But this is just to give a general overview on what we want to see moving forward. So my goal really, this is just a snapshot not to dig too much into this, but to talk about our overall process. And it keeps us focused as we move forward and helps us measure success. Next slide. This is a graph that I got from the city of Denton. It's not for us to be compared to Denton, but this is the kind of information that we want to bring back later on in the year or maybe on a biannual basis as we report what type of successes that we have from the grant process. So I wouldn't get caught too much in the numbers, but just the graph itself, that's kind of what we want to present to you guys in the future. And grants take a while to receive. As you know, some of the larger grants take a long time, and so some of those other grants will as well. So when we work on our reporting system, we'll let you know within a document like this what it kind of looks like. So this is just a general overview of how we want to report back to you guys in the future. Next slide. This, I read an article through San Diego, and obviously don't get caught too much in the numbers because San Diego is a bigger city, has different assets. But what caught my attention and is similar to what we can do here is that left column you see there, it's the application. It's the amount they applied for. And the right one is the amount they receive in awards. And in that time frame, it was a big focus on their council to get more in grant funding, to capture that money that's out there, to maximize their efforts. And you can see they started in 2019, and they increased all the way to $229 million in 2022 for their fiscal year. This is not to really go specific to say that we would get that amount, but the goal here is to communicate the more you apply for, the more you could possibly get. And so that's a goal in the future for us to come back and we present a graph similar to this, saying that, hey, we've applied for this much. And as you can see from fiscal year 2019 to 2020, it was a small increase. So we could go through a couple of years like that. We could go from 21 to 22. Grants are a little bit tricky and it's going to take some time. Next slide. These are the type of grantors, just so you guys can have a general overview. Technical assistance partners, I put that up there because it's the organizations that most of you guys are already affiliated with, and I'll use just ICMA or TML. They can provide experts through their organization to us. It's a grant process. They're granting us with expertise that we don't currently have, and I categorize that as a grant in my mind. So those are ways that we can improve. So when we go to apply for a bigger grant, we're positioned correctly. A lot of the grants is really based around language, what kind of plans you have in place, what kind of things that you already have done. And so technical assistance helps you if you haven't got started. If you haven't got started and you need expertise help to get the process going. Also, I have community partners. Obviously, you guys know ExxonMobil. That's a community partner, and they have given to the City of Beaumont. So that's another way that you can receive grants. Organizational initiatives. Beautification is usually an organizational initiative, and they have grant funding out there for organizations or cities to receive from organizations. So that's one example. Obviously, you have your federal and state grants that we have been receiving in the past, and also you have foundation grants. You can go to the next slide. These are the type of grants that we will apply for. You have the match to a percentage. Basically, that means it's not fully covered, but a percentage is. I think in times past, we have mostly done the reimbursement grants, if I'm not mistaken. But that's just one avenue, is the match to a percentage means you have a percentage of the money and you apply for a grant for the rest. You have a grant for fully covered at 100%. Obviously, that's the idea, to get a grant, but not all grants are created equal and they're not all available. And sometimes it's a little bit more competitive. And just to give you a general overview, that's what it's about. Also, we have low interest loans. These grants, it's called a loan, but it can be looked at as a grant in certain cases. If you wanted to hypothetically go after a certain amount of funding for a particular project that could reduce the amount of money that you would pursue a bond for in the future. So if you going to go for a bond for $100 million and there's a low interest loan for $10 million, you could bring that number down. You wouldn't really have to go to the public process that a bond does. It's only in certain situations. I just put this out there just in case it does become of interest in the future. To my knowledge, we have not done a low interest loan through the grant process that I've been able to find. Also, like I mentioned, technical assistance. You can utilize an organizational resources and expertise. Being that we are short-staffed, technical assistance plays well for a city like us and allows us to get up to speed really fast on certain projects or be a good candidate for a grant. Next slide. We want to be strategic in this whole process, and so that's why I started off by talking about the strategic goals that you guys voted on And this is just a confusing math problem. I don't even think anybody can figure it out. But the idea is to be strategic, because obviously you can't figure it out unless you put some strategy to it. Next slide. This is the process that we are going to recommend moving forward. I'll go step by step on this. The first step is everything that we apply for moving forward should be a part of the strategic plan. We're going to identify unaccomplished strategic plan goals, and that becomes the target list on what we will apply for regarding grants. It makes the most sense, and also community investment plan will be in that as well. From that, we'll have a target list, and we'll work with either a grant consultant or in-house staff. And in-house staff is usually the departments, and typically if the dollar amount on the grant is low, an in-house staff can handle a project like that. Or if it's a reoccurring grant that's already been through our system, it's much easier for us to manage. Once that dollar amount goes pretty high, then we need to look at the RFP process, which is in the next point. So we would, from that list, work with either in-house or outside consultant to pick a grant to develop that application, or you put it out for RFP. And that just kind of depends. If it's a bigger grant, we want to go through the RFP process. It's much more sustainable that way. From that, we want to develop a grants report on a biannual basis. I say biannual, we may need a little bit longer. It just depends on when you apply and when you will receive funding. An example is we apply for the EPA grant. ExxonMobil was a huge partner in that process. We were informed that it was supposed to be around the summertime we were supposed to be awarded, but then they sent out an email saying, well, hey, you made it to the next round, we'll let you know something in the fall. And so that grant was around $700,000 or more, and we still haven't found anything out. And so you're kind of dealing with a different agency, and so you have to kind of be a little bit more patient. So that biannual, we may flex that out to be a little bit longer, but all that will be based on when the idea of us getting awarded, or at least finding out if we will be awarded. And then from there, we just rinse and repeat. We do the same thing over and over. We go back to the strategic plan. We stay focused. We stay focused on a community investment plan. And that is the guiding, these are the guiding documents. So that's pretty much the presentation on the overall direction that we would like to go when it comes to grants and our application and pursuit of them. Next slide. Any questions? Or comments from staff if I missed something, or no comments.
Councilman Turner.
Yeah, Miles, I want to let you know I appreciate y'all. Grants is one thing that this council has been very vocal about in the past, and to see us have a presentation to let us know we're going to strategically go after it, it speaks volume that, we're talking to staff and staff is listening and actually delivering. So I just want to let you know, appreciate you putting the presentation together, and I'm looking forward to the outcome. I'm pretty sure you're going to go out and get us some money.
Yeah.
Mr. Haynes, thank you. And I love the San Diego slide.
Okay.
I like the way that went up like that. So you got the right expectations from us, but thank you.
It works.
Miles, just want to say good job. That was a great presentation. And good luck on Dancing with the Stars.
Appreciate that unofficial endorsement. That's it.
Thank you. All right, for those that are here for the proclamation or presentations and would like to leave, now's the time to do so, and thank you for coming. Now's the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. You may make public comments on the consent agenda and regular agenda items 1 through 8. Items 10, 13, 14 have been pulled from today's agenda. Items 9, 11, and 12 have already been heard in a joint public hearing during the Planning Commission and are not available for comment today. And you may also speak on any other matter of public concern. And at this time, this will be, and we are only doing public comments now at the beginning of council meetings, so there will be none at the end.
Correct. Erica Moran, item number 11 on the agenda.
They've already been, item number 11? Is that correct?
It was on the kiosk.
That item's already been heard, so it's not
Yeah.
available for public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. You just
That's all
said
right.
that and I forgot. I'm sorry. I don't have anyone else then.
All right. Is there a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved and approved for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussions?
Mayor, I would ask that item Q be pulled out separately to be discussed as a standalone.
All right. So item Q will be pulled from the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried. We will move to item Q on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Council to consider a resolution approving an increase in base wages and additional compensation for the city manager, city attorney, city clerk, and the chief magistrate.
All right. Can I have a motion for item Q?
So move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for item number Q. Any discussion?
Mayor. Thank you. As the council knows, here recently, we voted to raise the water rate with our citizens. And in spite of political pressure that I was under, I voted to support that decision, feeling that it was the right decision to be made for our citizens. Of course, at that time, it was a question of timing, but we felt that postponing it would only raise the increase, and so it would not help our citizens, and so it passed. Once this item had hit the streets of Beaumont, I began to hear from my constituents. And again, they raised the question of timing, considering that we're in a deficit budget, the economy as it is, the raising of the water rates, just again, an issue of timing. With the water rates, I felt and believed that the timing, it was just something that could not be avoided. But with this one, perhaps it can be. And for that reason, today I'll be voting no. I wanted to speak to this because I wanted to do two things. Number one, I'm not interested in pulling these employees out one at a time and discussing that. That's not my intention. And number two, this is not a statement of employee value or of their contribution to our city. I recognize their value. I recognize the contribution they make. But for me, again, it's just an issue of timing. The timing is not right, considering the size of these increases. And so for that reason, I will be voting no. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, excuse me, Councilman Turner raised his hand.
Yeah, my only concern is I know we discussed these things last week and we all had the opportunity as a council to kind of dive into our feelings and emotions towards these, topics and things of that magnitude. It's just, I just want to make it clear that when we come to things like this, we have to, I consistently say, look at data and compare it to things. I kind of feel like as a city, we can't say we want the best of things and we're not willing to pay the competitive wages of the salaries that are actually out there with cities comparison and like size. I really feel like as leaders, I would like to see us not have that mentality of that. And even when it comes to a deficit budget, I've recalled us doing wage increases not only for the staff as a whole, but also police department. We recently had a contract where we gave them overall wage increase. I just like to see it consistent when we make these decisions. That's just a concern of mine. You know, I understand politically we're in a deficit, but if we don't keep the right people in place, I think that deficit might grow deeper. So that's just my concern. I really think you need to put the right people in positions to get us where we need to be. And I feel like I want y'all to know I appreciate y'all. I'm more than confident the deficit that I agree that we're in with the right leadership and everybody working together, we would get out of it.
Councilman Philshaw.
And I appreciate Councilman Turner bringing that up because I did fail to mention that when the budget came before the council, we were at an $8 million budget deficit for this coming year. We expressed our concerns to the city manager, and the city manager went back to the table and he cut that deficit by 50% and brought it back to us as a $4 million budget deficit. And I commend him for that. And I appreciate him hearing the council and responding accordingly and doing a good job to cut that deficit. But again, just for me, it's an issue of timing, where we are right now, and just the things that we're facing as a city. Again, I don't want to get into the individuals, but there's just some increases here that has caused concern as we're looking at the many things that we're facing as a city. And so I'd like to give all of our employees more than a 2% increase. Love to give them a 5% increase. But we all understand that we're forced to live within budgets. And so again, it's not a question of value or contribution. It's just a question of timing. Thank you, Mayor.
And just for clarity, for those listening, when we talk about a deficit, we are not the federal government. We don't spend money we don't have. We do have the money. We are spending money that is in our fund balance. So it is something we are still being responsible, and it is not true deficit spending. So much like we may reach into our savings individually on a month-to-month basis. So now, all in favor of approving item number Q, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please read item number 1?
Yes, Mayor. Council consider approving an ordinance establishing the Beaumont Municipal Court as a court of record. And recommendation is approval of the ordinance.
There's a motion for item number 1. Is there a motion for item number 1?
So move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 1. Is there any discussion? Yes. Councilman.
Crowd, but I'd like to kind of get his comments on this before we move forward with a vote.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't know if the judge wants to go first, but but there are some steps that need to be taken in terms of adjustments in our municipal court before this can come effective. So there it may be advised that the council not make the ordinance effective as of today. One of those changes is that to become a court of record, we do need to provide a record to individuals. One of the most cost-efficient ways to do that is just to provide a recording. We reached out to some other cities that recently did the transition to change their municipal court to a court of record, Galveston being one of them. And what they do is they have a software that they use to audio record the hearing, and upon the request of the defendant, they provide that at little or no cost on a flash drive to them, and then the individual is responsible for having that transcript transcribed at their own expense. The transcription cost varies. There are some online services, but you can also pay for it to be done locally, so the cost of that varies. That is going to be an additional cost to citizens. The other big change would be that now everything, because it is a court of record, would have to be in writing, which would require some different processes for individuals looking to appeal their trials from municipal court on up. And I know that that is probably could provide some angst to individuals who are representing themselves in municipal court. But like I said, there are some other cities who've navigated this process as well. There are other there are other people's court, like just of the peace courts that are court of records that have processes in place that we can model after to make it, to maintain the equitable system that we have in place in municipal court. And with that, I'll yield to Judge Lively for additional comment.
Let me ask that one of you please explain the difference between a court of record and that of not of record, as well as the benefit of having a court of record.
So I'll let Judge Lively explain the difference, and then I'll talk to you about the fundamental benefits of why we chose to make this change.
Just to back up a minute, when there was a presentation done regarding buildings that came up earlier, when I went to look online to see the video to understand what led this move to go to a court of record, the video was not available. Section 5 of that workshop was not there. So there was no way to look and see what the conversation was. We haven't talked about this before, so this is brand new. Municipal court of record is a substantial change to the fundamental operation of the court. What you have now is whenever a defendant wishes to appeal, used to you could just request a new trial verbally, and then there was a short period of time you post an appeal bond, and what it gave you was a trial de novo at county court. You got another bite at the apple. That goes away with the municipal court of record because you need now to have, instead of a motion for new trial oral, what you'll be doing is filing points of error in writing to request the court to then grant you a new trial. The appellate process is quite a bit different. When we come with the transcripts, the way I read the statute was, yes, you can record the stuff with a recorder, but when it comes to transcribing, you needed a court reporter. That's the way I read it. So that's something else that makes a difference. Motion for continuances, we used to be able to be informal on that. Now, if you want to try and preserve the record on not granting a continuance, that needs to be filed formally. And so everything gets more complicated for the defendants. You're also going to run into an issue with CDL cases. CDL cases, a lot of times, will do what's called a leapfrog appeal. Leapfrog appeals just mean they plead no contest to the charge and then post an appeal bond and take it up to county court. Those cases go away. You can no longer do a leapfrog appeal. You would have to try your case. So you can expect trial court caseloads to increase because we do have a large number of CDL cases since we are on the freeway. And it's just, that's a couple of things we need to think about. Additional staff to handle the additional load. We also need to convert to add our civil software to the encode system we have so that we can handle civil cases, because the move, as I understand it, was to handle these dilapidated building structures through here and skip around district court. And so by doing that, you're going to add that caseload in too. So there's going to need to be some money spent to get this done right. So that's just thoughts on that. The benefit is having the dilapidated buildings added so that you don't have to go to district court. That's my personal opinion on that. That's the big plus.
Yeah. So to that extent, that is the purpose, or the moving force to have this done, is that the city would be able to essentially go to our municipal court as opposed to filing it in district court, where the dockets are a little bit longer. We would have a set docket date and be able to proceed quickly. The average court case in municipal court is somewhere between 30 days and 3 months, whereas in district court, it could be extensively longer for a claim like that. So that was the driving force, is that we would be able to quickly move forward with dilapidated structures and unsafe structures, both in downtown and around the city.
Yes, Councilman Samuel.
I understand that will be tremendous help in dealing with dilapidated structures. Have we thought about the impact that it will have on the average citizen going into municipal court now, whereby previously if the decision came out adverse to them in municipal court, they can automatically go over to the county court and plead that case. But now with the court of record, it appears that they will that will necessitate them having an attorney at the lower level, at the municipal court level, because if they're appealing, they're going to have to file an appeal and the appropriate documents with that. Have we thought about that?
So when we started this process, we have been in constant contact with Galveston, which is the closest city to us that has a municipal court of record, and how they transition. And they started their process probably in about 2013. After a major hurricane, they realized that they needed to do in order to, again, to deal with the same situation, unsafe structures. And so they started their transition in that point. And the biggest thing from their office that we gathered is that it is an education process on the part of both the attorneys that work in municipal court and the clerks that work there, and educating the individual, not necessarily giving legal advice, but they've created documents and forms similar to what that are provided in JP court, to tell individual that this is what you need to fill out to file your case. This is what you need to fill out to do your appeal. This is the form you need. So they've created a form base, so to speak, in order to assist individuals with that. Has there been an impact? Absolutely. And with any change that requires a more formal process, there is going to be an impact. But what I stated earlier is that if we want to do this, it's something that council wants to do, then we need to be committed to making sure that we maintain our equitable system in place and making sure that people understand the process and the new procedure.
Go ahead.
I'm just thinking out loud. So with that, will we have some type of public defender assistance in any way?
There's no budget for that. We have the authority, if we think there's certain circumstances, to appoint counsel for people such as they have they're maybe not mentally competent to come forward on the case, but there's no budget for it. We've never done it before because we don't have the resources.
Well, I know that we all have a desire to improve efficiencies regarding the unsafe structures, but perhaps at this point we ought to table this and make sure that the council has a clear understanding of what the overall cost will be, and figure out how we can proceed, if that's acceptable.
So just so we're clear, is council acting to table it to get hard numbers and costs? Because I think what Councilman Samuels are concerned for are probably intangibles that we probably wouldn't be able to fully ascertain or provide a report on. All we could do is see what other cities, what kind of feedback or an impact they had. We can definitely reach out to those cities to see what that was for them. But in terms of providing tangible data for Councilman Samuels, I just don't know that I'll be able to do that.
Well, my desire, okay, I just want to make sure that as we're looking at ways of impacting the dilapidated structures, particularly downtown and other areas across the city, we are not hurting those who do not have the ability, either the know-how to deal with the court system or the funds to deal with the court system. I'm just thinking about the impact that it will have, because I've always viewed municipal court, and not even the JP courts anymore, but that's the people's court. Sometimes that's where they can plead their case. They don't have to get an attorney to plead that case. They can go in and attempt it. Some can, but then there are others who think they can, and it turns out to a disaster. So I'm just concerned about the impact that it would have. I'm not certain that tabling, I don't mind, but I just want to be able to balance the benefit of doing that and how I understand it will be good to deal with dilapidated structures, but the burden is the thing that concerns me the most. And the burden is going to be on those who cannot afford, those who do not know. And that's where I'd rather err on in caution.
Judge Lively?
If you table it, it would at least give you time to look at the rest of the issues in more detail, not just from my perspective, but from looking at what the ordinances are. The ordinance that's proposed today doesn't even address anything about trials or appeals as to show the impact it may have on the defendants. But it gives you a chance, if you'd like to take time to look at it, so that when you make that decision, it's made based upon the whole picture.
Well, I too, I say, I'm not opposed. I'm not saying I'm opposing it, but I'm very cautious of the impact on the people. So you may not know what we're asking, but you can get some information from
Yeah,
others.
so no, I'm definitely, I wrote it down. We want to do a cost association. We want to identify what the procedure would look like. So you can gauge, I mean, you're a criminal attorney, you can gauge what what that impact would be, and then just try to get some tangible feedback from the other cities that have went through this transition on what they've heard from their citizens as it relates to the impact for the change. I got you.
All right. Councilman Durio?
Judge, you also mentioned that you would need more staff. You know, how much staff and what will they be doing? Also, would they need more staff from code enforcement?
No, sir.
We're just talking about the added bundle you're bringing in of civil cases, which we've never done civil cases here before. And so we're going to have somebody that works with those cases, that knows what's going on, because like Sheree mentioned, we have to get our forms together. We have to give notice to the attorneys that are filing cases that are doing the leapfrogs, that you can't do that anymore because we're a court of record. We need some time to be able to pull it all together and find out exactly what we do need as far as people to make this operation run, since it's changed the face of the operation. TMCEC did a newsletter, and granted it's over a decade old, but one of the things they were mentioning was the increase in trials that you'll see. So that's also going to affect the court schedule and what we may need to do. So that's just my 2 cents. And I'll go take my 2 cents and sit down.
Thank you, Judge Love.
Thank you.
Ms. City Attorney, on a table, does that require a vote?
Yes.
Okay. So
And
I need a second.
And we in the past, we've asked that council give a deadline. So table for 2 weeks, table for 3 weeks, so that staff has a idea of when you want to see it back.
Okay.
I'll request it to be tabled for 30 days,
Okay.
at least.
Need a second for,
I'll second that.
it's been moved and seconded to table this issue for 30 days. All those in favor, please.
May I say something?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, sounds like we definitely need to think this through some more, and from what the judge has told us and what the council member is asking, for sure. But I just also remind you that this is structured and set up for downtown structures. And it's a part of the getting downtown in a better place. So we're talking about people who probably can't afford to have representation in such situations as this. And this is a key part of what we want to do in our downtown to get it code compliant and get things looking better. So I'll just remind you of that. Understand the tabling, okay with the tabling, but just remember that this is set up to work with the downtown structures.
I got a question, Mayor.
Yes.
I appreciate that, Mr. Williams, and I understand that's the intent, but that's not the way that it's written. It's written for all of Beaumont, correct?
So the transition for a municipal court of record would impact the entire court. I think what the manager is trying to point out is that the majority of our focus for civil cases would be in the downtown area.
Fair enough.
I do understand that. And I know that was one of the reasons that it's being implemented or attempted to be implemented. But I'm not certain that we can't address the dilapidated structures downtown and bringing them up to code. I'm not certain if the court of record status will be the key component to doing that. I just know that there is going to be an adverse impact on those who can't afford it. If it were just the building owners, I'd say, yeah, let's do it. But is that going to impact our ability to tag buildings?
No, so it doesn't affect the code enforcement and tagging process. It just affects when we file cases. Like right now, when we file a case for an inhabitable structure, or we were to do that, we have to file it at district court, and it's not an emergency injunction type thing. We're not filing it that way. It's a substandard structure, so it gets put in rotation with other civil cases. And if we're not fortunate enough to get on a priority docket, it could take a while.
So it's timing.
It's timing. This is solely based on timing, and to that extent, council has been aggressive about wanting to revitalize downtown. And one of the major issues is that we have a lot of substandard structures downtown that could be resolved with civil issues. Now, we could file those cases. We could not do a municipal court of record and file those cases in what you call the traditional court. It could just take a while, and council would need to be on board with it taking a while.
And it could be more expensive because those who will be appealing would know how to deal with that.
Well, absolutely. So it's definitely a situation where the city would be investing more resources and capital, as well as, like the city manager mentioned, the people who we would be bringing these cases against would have viable representation as well. So we would have a more extenuating, longer court process just in general, whether, and that could be in municipal court, that can be here, but the reality of getting to municipal court is that it would at least come around faster and quicker. As opposed to district court. And so to your point earlier about managing the benefits of being able to get to municipal court or get to these cases quicker, as opposed to the adverse effect potentially to pro se defendants, it really just kind of comes back to what is council's desire and what's going to be the overall benefit for the city as a whole. I can't answer that question.
Councilman Philshaw?
I'm not an attorney. I yield to the legal minds in the room, but I just want to ask the question. I'm assuming that this ordinance cannot be restricted just to the downtown area.
So no. So when you create we're essentially changing our court. That's what the judge was talking about. So when you create a court of record, your entire court process changed. And in order for us to be able to file civil cases in our municipal court, it needs to be a court of record. So this one convenience, essentially, this one convenience that council wants, would have an impact on every other part of the court. It's essentially a unfortunate or intended benefit, however you want to look at it. It's just for every act, there's a consequence.
I figured I'd get a no. I always get a no.
The biggest thing
Very
is
nice no.
the biggest thing is when you say court of record, there are going to be records. And that means multiple documents and filing and refiling and storage and all of that.
Oh, Lord.
All of that. So it's...
Yeah, we will be required to maintain documents in the normal course of municipal record, normal court records within their retention schedule.
Staff.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of tabling this for 30 days, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 2?
Yes. Council consider a resolution approving a contract for wastewater laboratory services for use by the Water Utilities Department, and recommendation of our staff is approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 2?
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 2. Any discussion? Councilman Turner.
Yes, sir. I just want staff to kind of explain. I was looking at the bid and I seen out of roughly 160 total, 4 actually bidded on it. And I was looking at the bid prices, and one was $41,970, and the one we're approving is at $54,150. Can you explain the difference between those two? And kind of why we chose to go with this particular company that's a little bit more versus the lowest bid? I know we say lowest qualified bid. I just want some information on that.
The company that we disqualified, they took exception to our terms and conditions and requirements. They didn't provide everything that was required as the next company did for our needs of our water reclamation, water production. So that's why we disqualified them.
Okay, it's understandable. I just didn't see that documented, but that's why I want to ask, because I noticed the number was lower. Mr. Williams, other city staff, can you speak to the benefit of having a third-party company do testing and things of that magnitude?
I yield to staff to come and discuss that item.
This third-party lab that we contract out, it's basically for our annual testing we do on the wastewater pretreatment to keep the industry in compliance, as well as our quarterly testing. We're testing for things that we don't test at our regular facility. So it has to go out for third-party testing. And this is TCQ and EPA requirement.
Any other questions? All those in favor of approving item number 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 3?
Council consider a resolution approving the write-off of uncollectible water accounts totaling $60,079.39, for which each individual account exceeds $1,000, and recommendation of approval of the resolution by staff.
Is there a motion for item number 3?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for item number 3. Any discussion?
Got a question, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Neal.
Mr. Manager, a couple of these, one specifically, I see an amount for $22,000 on that we're writing off. Is the city putting any liens on the property or doing anything to protect our interest?
Councilman Neal, so the account that you're talking about, the write-off of $22,000, that's out at the Beaumont Yacht Club. And what happened out there is that the management company, that Starship Conroe, they were managing the Beaumont Yacht Club at the time. And our records indicate that they had 2 major leaks. And it just so happened that those leaks occurred at the end of their lease of managing that complex out there. So in other words, if they would have stayed on as the managers of that property and fixed it, we would have written this off through a leak adjustment anyway.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approving item number 3, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you proceed with reading item 4?
Council consider authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement with Beaumont AG LP for economic development incentives on the Neighborhood Empowerment Zone Program for the development of an apartment complex at 4390 West Cardinal Drive, and recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for our item number 4?
Move to approve. Second.
There's a motion and a second for item number 4 for approval. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please, may we have the reading of item number 5?
Council consider a resolution to award Home ARP American Rescue Plan funding for the development of non-congregate shelter, tenant-based rental assistance, and the administration associated with the planning and management of the projects, and recommendation of approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 5?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval for item number 5. Any discussion, please?
Question, Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Neal.
The 1.5 million that's being requested from Legacy, or I'm sorry, the 200,000 that's being requested on the bottom portion of that, where exactly is this location going to be?
So what we're recommending is awarding two separate portions of this grant. The 1.5 would be for 1.572 would be for the acquisition and development of non-congregate shelter housing. And they do have a couple sites in mind, but they have not closed on those sites. Of course, the location of the site would be subject to zoning and permit review. And then the second recommended award is $200,000 for tenant-based rental assistance. And so again, the idea behind these funds is trying to prevent and address homelessness. Again, this is money that came out of the COVID and ARPA funds. And so the tenant-based rental assistance is just that. It would be a program whereby you would help pay rent, you would help pay utilities to help families in need in order to keep them from being evicted. Legacy CDC has actually had a program for quite a while doing just this kind of work, so this would be added to their funding to help with those folks in our community. You may recall the City of Beaumont had a similar program of about $1.6 million a couple years ago, but we've expended all those funds. So this would add to that effort.
So this money's not for the homeless camp?
No, sir. This is for non-congregate shelter housing.
So 1.5 million for roughly 12 people, though. I'm assuming my number's correct on that. Seems like a lot of money.
Well, so their plan is to keep folks in, and I don't know if y'all have a copy of the this document that was provided by Legacy. If you turn to page, I believe it's 3. If you turn to page 3 in that document, there's a good representation of what they refer to as the housing continuum. So if you look at the left of that diagram, it's essentially homelessness. And then all the far right is home ownership and private market rental. So obviously we're trying to move folks from the left to the right. What Legacy is proposing here with these funds is what we call transitional or supportive housing. So again, you can see it's on that continuum of housing that leads from homelessness to home ownership or rental. But it provides more services than just a shelter. So you're aware we've talked recently about a sanctioned camp, and we are working to that end with other funds. But for the home ARP funds proposed today, what we're recommending is to try to plug that gap there at the transitional and supportive housing part of that spectrum. Another component of this will be some degree of assistance, supportive assistance. So if you talk about mental health, I know that's a serious issue really, that's a big component of this. And so Legacy is proposing to work with our local nonprofit partners. And I think that is listed perhaps on page, let's see if I can find that.
Excuse me, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Is somebody from Legacy here at the meeting?
I believe Vivian Ballou is here with Legacy. And maybe we'll invite Vivian up
Come up and
for
address that.
questions. While she comes up, I'll mention that I think their goal is to keep folks in 60 days. So if you look at the number of units with a goal of 60 days, it actually ends up helping hundreds of people per year.
Okay.
And again, this is Vivian Ballou with Legacy CDC.
Before Vivian speaks, Mayor, if I may, I know we asked staff to look into the pallet home. To my understanding, after research, this funding couldn't be utilized there because reading Ms. Ballou's information, I see everyone has to have their own kitchen and the whole nine. So did we go look into that as requested on last week?
Yes. So again, looking at that continuum of housing, the sanctioned camp, homeless camp that we talked about recently is more, in my mind, attuned to the tents or the pallets. But regarding this funding, it's a little bit further to the right on the continuum, so a little bit more advanced. This would be a proper apartment or essentially a dwelling unit with these services surrounded. And again, these home ARP funds as we submitted this plan to HUD, we submitted the documentation, we advertised, we invited our local nonprofits to apply. The plan was to do what's called non-congregate shelter housing, which HUD requires. And so every apartment unit has to have its own bathroom, its own kitchen. And so when you look at the pallet housing, it is much better in term than say a tent, but most of them do not have their own bathrooms that are included in those units. There are some out there that you could get, but they're in excess of $50,000, $60,000 per. So again, for the home art funds, the plan that we submitted and got approval from HUD to move forward, it is for the non-congregate shelter housing, which is what we're recommending here today.
So understood. I just wanted to ask, because I know it's a difference between the 10 to 12,000 pallet homes council members guests presented versus these 54,000 to 60,000, homes with the amenities as required for this funding. So I just wanted to, bring that up.
Right. And again, Councilman, as you know, we are working on that project in parallel to this, but it'll be separate pots of funding that we're proposing.
Understood. Just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Councilman Samuel.
Yes, Ms. Ballou, as you begin, please keep in mind and help us to understand along this continuum what your target is, where your target is, and how CDBG impacts that, and the history that you've had in addressing the overall continuum with homeless versus those that are in homes, those are short-term, long-term. Just kind of let us know about all of that.
Yes, sir. Mr. Boone did an excellent summary of what the program is. What we can do here is take someone who is homeless or at risk of homelessness and bring them into housing. It's a temporary transitional unit where at that point they move in, we assist them with rent, any type of food and things that they need. And then what we would do is begin an action plan for their movement towards moving further down the spectrum towards home ownership. So someone would come in, some people may need 3 months, some people may need 6 months, but up to 1 year, we would work with them. They meet with a HUD certified counselor. They're provided with credit counseling, financial education, career readiness. As he mentioned, also partnering with, if it's someone who needs drug treatment or maybe even mental health care, we'll work with them to get them through that process, then move them down the spectrum to the next step, which would be maybe more of a rental or even towards, in 2 years, our goal is to help people get towards home ownership, those who want to, or at least permanent housing.
Councilman Turner.
And Ms. Ballou, though it's a possibility we're looking at 12, it's still options that could come available that you can possibly get more units if the funding is balanced out and they can be utilized.
Yes.
Is that still a possibility?
Yes. Initially, we thought we could do 8. And then as we developed the plan, it's now up to 12. And we are considering existing units versus new construction. So we do have some options, but until we have an actual agreement with the city, we couldn't exercise any options. So we are looking to, as you mentioned, maybe get more bang for the buck. But what happens is these units, it's 12 units, but someone will not stay there indefinitely. So we would move people in and out as they move through the spectrum.
Ms. Ballou, these units are like for families, aren't they like 2-bedroom apartments?
They're 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
And your experience in working with CDBG and other entities in the community, what is your experience with that? How many years?
About 35 years of experience. I was a housing director for the City of Port Arthur, City of Irving, the Beaumont Housing Authority. So I've worked in these programs a long time. The CDBG funds are more flexible for the encampment, but when you deal with home funds, there is more of a restriction to what you can do with the funds. So over the last 35 years, I've been with Legacy since 2009. And what we've done is we've created a program where we can take someone from the street. We have funding to put them in hotels temporarily. We have funding to do food, telephones, identification, whatever they need to make the next step. And then we work with landlords. We pay landlords incentives to accept clients who would normally not be able to apply and be approved. And then we continue to work with that client until they move to the next step.
And what about your network of partners out in the community in dealing with counseling and financing, all of those things?
Yes, we have memorandum of agreement with Spindletop. We've worked with every organization. We're part of the long-term recovery group, so anyone like Catholic Charities, every group that, that's here in Beaumont. So we've been part of this community for the last 12 to 13 years working this. We work with we're on the Coalition for the Homeless. We do the Friday nights at the park. So we are already participating in the Homeless Coalition and working towards, reducing the number of homeless on the street here in Beaumont.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? And were there any other proposals that people actually presented?
Yes, sir. If you look in your packet, it would be I believe the third page. So the proposals, of course, are Legacy CDC. Habitat did make a proposal. Salvation Army made a proposal, and the House Center made a proposal. The issue with Habitat and How is essentially they were limiting their clients. So in other words, part of the home ARP requirements is you really need to kind of serve a broad market. And so they were not considered eligible for award under the guidelines established under this program.
And Mr. Boone, and I know we spoke about those pallet homes, but even with the extra funding and the experience that we don't really even have the staff to run it, that's why the recommendation is to go with something similar to this with Legacy and their experience versus that other option.
Well, again, to do pallet with home art funding, because HUD mandates that it has to be non-congregate shelter housing. In other words, every apartment has to have a bathroom, really needs to have a kitchen. You're really going to be limited on, even with that amount of money, you'd be limited on how many units you could establish. The other thing is, if you're going to expend $1.5 million of federal money, you need to have a high level of confidence that it's going to be a successful venture. And again, working with Legacy for many, many years, we're confident. Whereas if the primitive camp, the sanctioned camp we've talked about recently, we've never been in that business. And so, there is a bit of a concern in terms of the long-term viability of that. I mean, we hope it's successful, but we don't want to be on the hook for $1.5 million if it's not.
And I totally understand the precaution and concern. I just wanted to explain to the public because there was a discussion, and I just wanted to make it clear on why the city takes the position we're taking and the concern and why it's more beneficial to go this route. I just want it clear to the public.
All fair questions, but again, we're working these projects in parallel.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask this. This is not precluding us from doing other things.
No, sir. As mentioned, we're yes, sir.
This is, they've been doing this for years, and don't they do their own, they seek their own grants on also?
Yes, sir.
So they're not totally dependent upon the city.
Yes, sir. City of Beaumont funding is just one piece of the puzzle of what they do.
So we can move forward with looking for other options.
Yeah.
This is just one of the, it happened to come to us at this time. So I've seen them over the years, and very respectable, and they have established a good network of people that can help the whole person, not just with housing, but help them with development, finance development, help them in mental health care, many things. So, okay.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 5, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, would you please read item number 6?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with CDM Smith, Inc. to continue management of the municipal separate stormwater system, MS4 permit for the city of Beaumont for fiscal year 2024, and staff recommends approval of the resolution.
Is there a motion for item number 6?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second for approval of item number 6. Any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes,
Now-
Councilman Durio.
Mr. Manager, could you have someone come and explain this?
Bart could. MS4 is pretty common, but Bart can talk about what's specific to Beaumont.
There's a lot involved in this. If you flip into your packet, into the engineering services agreement and go to page 2 of that agreement, it lists a laundry list of services for the next few pages that goes along. But these are regulatory requirements that are put on the city of Beaumont that we have to do every year. We have to monitor the outfalls. We have to do the wet weather and dry weather screening. We have to maintain a database of all the outfalls in the city. And in addition to all that, we have to do an annual report. So this is the 2021 report. We don't have it yet for 2022. And in addition to that, they have to do individual reports for the wastewater treatment facility, the municipal transit facility, the municipal landfill, and the municipal airport. So, they do a great job at a very intense regulatory and requirement for us, and they keep up with all those change in regulations. So we're definitely happy with their performance.
All right, thank you.
All in favor of approving item number 6, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 7?
Consider authorizing the city manager to enter contracts for the purchase of 8 homes that were flooded during Hurricane Harvey in conjunction with the approved CDBG DR local buyout acquisition funding. And recommendation is authorizing the city manager to enter into contracts for the purchase of the homes.
Is there a motion for item number 7?
Move to approve.
Is there a second for item number 7?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for item number 7. Any discussion? Yes, Councilman.
This particular discussion item, city manager, someone, can you give us a little bit more details on this process and how this works and why the city goes in this direction? I had someone ask me prior to the meeting. I just want to make sure I got them adequate information.
Yes, sir. So this grant program does go back to Hurricane Harvey. You may recall, of course, after Harvey, we had extensive flooding, especially in the north end of the city. And so in response to that, the city partnered with the state of Texas and HUD to seek out grant dollars. Of course, we're using those on the public side to restore Riverfront Park. On the private side, what we did is a call for applications in order to buy out properties of those individuals who flooded, who are located within a floodplain as a result of Hurricane Harvey. And so this is the kind of the end result. We now have all the intake completed and the eligibility done and the appraisals done and the title work done, and so now we're moving towards closings. And so what we're asking you to do is authorize the manager to enter into contract to purchase these properties where the structures will be demolished and the property will be held in perpetuity by the city. But you won't have this repeat flood impacts to these individuals any longer. So, and it's again, of course, all at the discretion of the owner. It wasn't forced on anyone. It was all just at their discretion. So these are the few that took advantage of the program.
Councilman Duria.
It says there's going to be deed restricted properties to prevent future flooding loss. How's that going to work?
Well, we will record in the courthouse deed restrictions whereby you can't develop the properties. Now you can, there are some limited things you can do with the properties, grazing, agriculture, use of a lawn. So it may be that we'll go to the neighboring property owners and ask if they would like to perhaps lease the property as long as they agree to maintain it. And as long as they agree, of course, not to build anything on it, but we'll bring that back to you if that comes to pass.
Just lastly,
Councilman Turner.
Yeah, lastly, if once we take the building down as far as maintaining the lawn and things of that magnitude, would that fall on us until an arrangement such as that comes into existence?
Yes, sir. We're obligated to maintain it. The hope, again, is we could convince some neighbors to enjoy the property and maintain it, but we'll have to see how that works.
If there's no other discussion, all those in favor of approving item number 7, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 8?
Council consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to award a contract to Brightstar Contracting Inc. of Beaumont for the Evelyn Street 8x8 box culvert and cavity emergency repair project, and it comes with the recommendation of approval.
Is there a motion for item number 8?
Move to approve.
Is there a second for approval?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of item number 8. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 9?
Council consider a request for a rezoning from RS Residential Single Family District to RM-H Residential Multiple Family Highest Density or more restrictive district for property located south of 2315 Rusk Street. And it comes with approval of the ordinance.
Is there a motion for item number 9? Motion for approval.
So move to approve.
Is there a second for approval? There is a motion and a second for approval of item number 9. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving item number 9, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 11?
Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow an event hall in the CBD Central Business District for property located at 690 Orleans Street with the following conditions. 1, construction plan shall comply with all applicable building and fire code requirements. 2, construction plans must meet all requirements by water utilities for water and sanitary sewer services, including any requirements of the city's backflow, pretreatment, and/or fall program. And 3, must obtain a building permit and complete all necessary inspections for the addition.
Is there a motion for approval for item number 11?
So move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval for item number 11. Any discussion?
Mayor.
Yes, Councilman Duria.
Chris, at the planning and zoning meeting, there were quite a few folks that came up against this from that neighborhood.
This was the one downtown. I know we sent out,
Never mind.
this
Yeah,
one,
it's a different
I know
one.
which one you're talking about.
yeah.
It's the event center.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All in favor of approving item number 11, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Mr. City Manager, may we have the reading of item number 12?
Council consider a request for a specific use permit to allow a substance abuse disorder treatment facility in the CBD, which is Central Business District, for property located at 380 Main Street. And recommendation is denial of the ordinance. And the joint public hearing, the planning commission recommended 6-1 to deny the request.
So is there a motion for item number 12 to approve the denial?
So move approval of the denial.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval of the denial for number 12. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the denial of item number 12, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is carried. Now it's time for council member comments. I will start on my left side and Councilman Taylor Neal.
I want to say, send my prayers and condolences to the Nathan and Getz family as they go through this new challenge they're all going through. So please, everybody remember them in their prayers tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Samuel.
I'd also like to express my condolences to the Nathans and Getz family.
Thank you. Councilman Felshaw.
As well, my prayers go out to the Mike Getz and his family, and please remember to pray for Israel and the conflict that they're in at this time. Also, last night, the City Council and Beaumont BISD Board met and had a joint meeting. It went well. It was very encouraging, very positive. I appreciate the mayor, the city manager, Dr. Allen, and the board and the council for coming together. It was a good meeting, and I look forward to future meetings. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Felshaw. Councilman Turner.
Yeah, just prayers for Councilmember Mike Getz in his absence. We all know where he's at. Just prayers for the Nathan family. We'll be with you. And Allison was a great person. The community spoke to that, and I just hope everything turns out okay for him. So I just ask everybody to pray for him and his family.
Thank you, Councilman Turner. Councilman Durio.
Same thing, prayers and condolences to Mike and the Nathan family on the loss of Allison. She's a very sweet lady. She's going to be missed. Also, school board meeting went very well. There was a lot of positive things that came out of that last night. Thanks, staff. And once again, Miles, that was a great presentation. Appreciate it.
Mr. Barkovic.
Echo my condolences for Councilman Getz and his family in this time of their grief.
Yeah. Same, Mayor. Condolences to Councilman Getz and his family, and as well as the Nathan family.
Ms. Broussard.
Condolences to Councilmember Getz and his family. Allison will truly be missed.
Mr. City Manager.
Yes, condolences to Mike Getz and the Nathan family for their loss. And also, too, I'd like to commend the meeting with the school board last night. I think it was very productive, and it's great dialogue for the city and the school district to be able to sit down together and have those conversations, because success of Beaumont depends on both of us. So appreciate council for spending their time and doing that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And certainly I extend my condolences to Mike and the Nathans, and Allison Getz will certainly be missed in this community, and for the contribution that she's made in her life here. So The meeting is now adjourned.